Straight Shift with the Car Chick, the podcast that's all about cars, buying, selling, fixing, and driving, and sometimes running fast if you're the Car Chick. Now, here she is.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Straight Shift. Mother's Day is coming up. It is Sunday, May 10th. So today I thought I would dedicate this podcast to the best cars for moms that are not minivans. Granted, the minivan is still one of the most practical vehicles that you can buy if you are going to be hauling around your family, because those sliding side doors make it so easy to get in and out of the car. It's easy to strap the kids into their car seats. You get a good sized third row that you can actually get human beings into, and you get a lot of cargo capacity for hauling around all of the crap that comes with families, especially if you have kids that are involved in sports or dance or any of those activities, or if you guys are going to do a road trip to the beach or the mountains. You really cannot beat a minivan for its practicality. And minivans these days are way better than the ones that we had just, 10, 20 years ago. They give you so many convenient features. Some of them have these really cool stow and go seats that give you massive amounts of cargo space really easily and quickly. Some of them have intercom systems to make it easier to yell at the kids in the back so that you're not straining your voice all the time. Some even come with a built-in vacuum cleaner, which, personally, I think vacuum cleaners should just follow kids around, but makes it really easy to keep the car clean so you can vacuum up all those crumbs from the goldfish crackers and whatnot to keep the car nice. So between these features and, some of the minivans, when you get up to the higher trim levels, get quite luxurious. And of course, they have the price tags to go with it. I couldn't believe that you could actually spend $50,000 on a minivan. It's just nuts. But all that stuff makes minivans today way cooler than they used to be. And I have some clients, both moms and some dads, who can totally rock a minivan. I've got one client whose husband is a stay-at-home dad, and he's fantastic. And he was not too cool to get a minivan, but he did get the $50,000 minivan with every bell and whistle, and he got it in black on black. So we named it Darth Vader, and it was definitely the coolest minivan on the road. So you can be cool driving a minivan, but not everybody likes to do that. However, if you are going to go with a minivan, you really only have a few choices. Typically, when my clients call and say they want a minivan, I ask, great, the Honda or the Toyota? It usually is that simple. Granted, the Chrysler Pacifica has a lot of really, really good features. That's the one that has those cool stow and go seats. The interior materials on it are actually really nice, especially for a Chrysler product. It's kind of surprising. It can get fairly swanky. But the second and third row in the Pacifica is a little bit tighter than a lot of its competitors. They're not as roomy. They're not as comfortable. And the biggest drawback is, it's a Chrysler product. So you can just throw reliability totally out the window. If you're one of those people who doesn't keep vehicles for a long time, maybe you're only going to keep it 3 or 4 years, and you're going to ditch it before too many problems might arise or once the factory warranty runs out, it's definitely one to consider. You can get a lot for your money. But most people, at least my clients, reliability is a high priority for them across the board. So then we're back to the Honda or the Toyota. Now, here's where I'm upset. Normally, the Honda Odyssey is hands down the best minivan and the coolest minivan that has ever been made. Between the styling, which is, they kind of made it aerodynamic and cool and all these cool angles. So you could definitely get one in black and call it Darth Vader and feel really confident in that moniker. And it's got phenomenal technology. The seats can slide back and forth, so you can get in and out easily. It has the intercom system. One of the trim levels even has a system where it's a part of the rear DVD interactivity system for the kids in the back, to where they can ask the car, how much longer? Are we there yet? And the car will put up some cute little cartoons and graphics and actually show them based on the GPS in the car how far it's going to be to their destination. So they can just ask the car, are we there yet? And not bug mom and dad. It's really amazing. They redesigned the Odyssey in 2018 and put all this cool stuff out. But unfortunately, the Odyssey is plagued with Honda's faulty infotainment system, which has just tanked Honda's reliability ratings. I've mentioned this a couple times, I think, in previous podcasts, and I'm not going to go into huge detail right now, but there is a huge class action lawsuit over this faulty system. And it's not just in the Odyssey, it's also plaguing the Honda Pilot and the Acura RDX. And we're starting to see it crop up in some other Honda vehicles. So these problems with the infotainment system, and by the infotainment system, I mean the user interface, everything that you're working, the radio, all the controls, that big screen they have now that is the controls and interface between the person in the car. That system, it's not just annoying. It's like the problems don't just irritate you. They are distracting. The system freezes, it crashes, and to the point where you're trying to mess with that. And if you're trying to mess with that while you're driving, or if you have to pull over and stop and turn the car off and turn it back on again, which is usually the only way to fix the problem, it can cause safety issues. And that's why there's been a class action lawsuit. That's why they are launching an investigation with the Institute for Highway Traffic and Safety. So it's a big deal. And because of that, I cannot in good conscience recommend the Honda Odyssey to my clients, because this is a huge problem and Honda's not fixing it because, quite frankly, they don't know what's wrong with it. They don't have a fix. So they're burying their heads in the sand and pretending that it's not a problem when it is actually a huge problem. So I'm really irritated with that, because otherwise the Odyssey is just no-brainer, hands down, the best minivan on the market. And the problems have taken it off the list completely for me. It really sucks and pisses me off. So that leaves us really with the Toyota Sienna. And the Sienna is an extremely solid, reliable, and functional minivan. The access to the third row is really easy. You can get adults back there if need be. And it's one of the only minivans that's offered an all-wheel drive. So for folks that live up north in the snow, you can have a minivan and drive around in the snow. But it's in desperate need of a redesign. The technology is very dated. The interface is dated. The styling is dated. Fortunately, that redesign is coming for the 2021 model. It's supposed to come out at the end of this year. That might be iffy with the problems, we've been seeing with car manufacturing around the world with this stupid coronavirus. So we're just going to have to kind of keep an eye on that and see when it's actually going to come out. But I'm really excited for it because the Sienna is in desperate need of a redesign. And hopefully if they've done some good changes like they've done with the RAV4 and the Highlander, it's definitely going to bring the Sienna back up to the top of the list and competitive with the other vehicles on the market. So, even the current model, while it's a little boring in my opinion, at least it's reliable and it's solid and it's easy to drive and it's super comfortable and it's very quiet. So it's definitely a good choice and it's a safe choice if you want a minivan that's going to last you a really long time. But if you're one of those moms or dads who would not be caught dead in a minivan, you actually have a lot of options depending on how many kids you have and how much crap you need to haul around associated with them. The alternative to the minivan that most families look at, based on mostly comparable pricing, is the mid-sized SUV. And there are a lot of mid-sized three-row SUVs on the market, but the problem is most of them suffer from a cramped third row and limited cargo space behind said third row. So if you need to use the third row on a regular basis, maybe you've got 3 or 4 kids, then you're sacrificing having cargo space for more than a few groceries and maybe a couple of small bags. But if you only have 2 kids, but you want that third row occasionally, then a mid-sized 3-row SUV can be perfectly usable for you because most of those third rows will fold flat and give you the cargo space you need or a place to put the dog or whatever. But if you really need that third row to be functional, your choices are very, very limited. In the past, I have loved the Honda Pilot because it did give you a lot of functionality, a decent third row, decent cargo space. But like I said, it's got the faulty infotainment system, so the Pilot is off my list. The Toyota Highlander, if reliability is your top priority, again, if reliability is your top priority, you kind of have to look at the Toyota because that's their thing. And the Highlander has been super solid, really reliable. But the third row, again, is a little bit cramped. The Highlander was redesigned for 2020, so we've got a brand new one out there, and it is a little bit better. It gives you more cargo space behind the third row, but that third row is still definitely for young children. You're not going to get teenagers back there comfortably, at least not for a long period of time. You're not going to get adults back there comfortably. It's okay if you're just going out to dinner with the whole family and maybe the grandparents and you're all just kind of cramming into one car to go out to dinner and you're not going to be in it for very long. You can totally live with that. But a lot of families really do need that third row on a regular basis. As a result, the GMC Acadia and its cousin, the Buick Enclave, have been really, really popular over the years with families because it does have the most interior cabin space. It's comfortable, it's quiet, and you get a lot of luxury for the money in those cars, which a lot of moms really appreciate. You know, if you're going to be hauling all the kids around, you might as well be comfortable. But the trade-off is crappy reliability. The Acadia and the Enclave have just been notorious for everything from transmission issues to AC problems, engine problems, suspension, fuel system, electrical, you name it, it has gone wrong on those cars. So it's not a vehicle that you really want to keep much past the factory warranty period. And a lot of people they kind of get attracted to them and sucked into them because it is so functional and it is really nicely appointed. It makes you feel luxurious. It makes you feel like you're taking care of yourself as well as the kids. And there's nothing wrong with that. Moms, you got to take care of yourselves. But the trade-off is you're going to have high maintenance costs and things are going to go wrong. One of my neighbors just hired me yesterday to replace their Acadia because even though it's made it to 93,000 miles without too many headaches, the AC has now gone out. And so they're going to have to replace the AC. And the transmission's probably going to go any minute now, even though they've taken good care of it just because that's what they do on these cars. So hence, we're going to be looking for a nice, probably Asian alternative car for them. And that's really been the biggest problem in this midsize category is you've had a trade-off between space and reliability. Until now. Thank you, Hyundai and Kia. Last year, they released the Hyundai Palisade and the Kia Telluride. And as I have said on previous podcasts, I absolutely love these vehicles. They are cousins. Hyundai and Kia are owned by the same parent company in Korea, and they share the same underpinnings and the same powertrain, but they're tricked out very differently. The Palisade is more focused on I am going to be really comfortable and cushy driving around town, where the Telluride says, hey, I'm a little more rugged and I've got some features that if you want to take the family on an outdoor adventure, I'm the car to buy. But what I really love about both of these vehicles is the size of them. You can even get adults into that third row without folding them up into a little tiny contorted position. And you still have decent cargo space behind that third row. They're comfortable and easy to drive. I love Hyundai and Kia's infotainment system because, one, it works. They haven't had the problems that so many manufacturers have had with their systems, knock on wood. And they're really easy and intuitive to use. You don't have to read the owner's manual 3 times cover to cover to be able to just change the radio station and plug in the Apple CarPlay. It's really easy to use. But they've also got a lot of features for the money, and that's been Hyundai and Kia's shtick, along with their 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, which you just cannot beat in the industry. One of them has a quiet mode, which I think is really cool and definitely something that a mom must have come up with. But what that does is it limits the music and the radio, whatever you're listening to out of the speakers, to just the front row so that it's quieter in the back if you want the kids to go to sleep while you can still listen to what you want to listen to, in your music or on the radio. So I think that's just a nice little thoughtful thing for families with children. It's unique to that brand. The only thing I don't like about them has been the price tag. Because they have been so crazy popular and there's wait lists, especially for the top trim levels, they've been selling them for $3-4 grand over sticker and getting that. I think that will settle down, especially with the whole coronavirus thing shaking up the whole demand in the industry. And I haven't looked to see what the supply and demand is for the top trim levels right now. But it's still, they are so worth looking at if you really need a third row on a regular basis. They are the best out there. And I expect reliability to be quite good because Hyundai and Kia's reliability over the last few years has been quite good. It's not up there with Toyota yet, but it's getting there. And you just get so much bang for your buck. They've got all the driver safety technology. You can get panoramic sunroofs. I mean, it's just a really, really nice, solid vehicle for the money. And the styling on them is pretty cool. I like them both quite a lot. Now, in the luxury segment, if you have a few more dollars to spend, I really like the Audi Q7. While the Lexus makes two, well, until you get up to the LX, which is their big honking SUV, the GX and now they have the RXL, so the RX SUV, which has been super popular over the years and ridiculously reliable. They now have a 3-row version of that. So those are your mid-size 3-row SUVs from Lexus. But the GX is so dated, both in its styling and its technology, and it rides more like a truck. My sister-in-law has one, and she loves it because they are super reliable. And it can be a good choice for some people, but it has a lot of drawbacks. And the RXL, is fantastic and popular as the RX is, when they stretched it just a tiny bit and crammed a third row in there, they really crammed it. So that third row is super tight. You have next to no cargo space behind it. And the roof line of the newly designed RX is a little more slopey. So it's very difficult to see out of the back of it. And that impairs your safety because if you can't see, you're more likely to hit things, which you just don't want to do, period, but especially if you've got little ones in the car. The Acura MDX used to be a good choice, but since they redesigned it in 2016, the reliability has just tanked. And this is, again, why I'm so pissed at Honda, because they used to be so reliable, such a no-brainer, and they're just not anymore. And the MDX has had some transmission issues. It's had electronics issues. And I'm just not a fan of it anymore. So, the Audi really gives you the best blend of everything that most families will want in a luxury SUV, assuming you can afford the price tag. It's got a good third row, really spacious and comfortable inside. You got plenty of headroom, legroom. You still have cargo capacity in the back, and it has great technology. Audi is known for their technology. That technology is a bit of a double-edged sword because while the technology is super cool, like the virtual cockpit, which basically makes the entire dashboard digital, it's amazing, but it's only amazing while it works. Eventually, it's going to stop working, and it's going to cost an arm and a leg to replace. So with German cars in general, they're great to lease. So if you're the type of mom who wants something new every 3 years and you can afford the price tag of the Q7, and they do have good leases on them, it can be a great choice. But definitely not something that, if you plan to keep it 10 years, probably not the direction that you want to go. And that's just, German cars. I've driven them for most of my life. I can say from experience they're expensive to maintain. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is Genesis, which is Hyundai's luxury spinoff brand, is going to come out with their first SUV, the GV80, which is going to be a 3-row midsize SUV. It's due out. Technically, it's due out this summer, and hopefully it won't be delayed too much because of the stupid virus, but we'll have to see. But I'm really excited for it, simply because we've seen such good things from Genesis. And even though this is a 3-row SUV, it is not related to the Hyundai Palisade. Most people are going to think that it's going to share the underpinnings. It's not. This is going to be on its own platform. It's going to be rear-wheel drive with all-wheel drive as an option. And I'm really hoping that it's as impressive as the Genesis sedans have been. And as soon as I am able to get my hands on one, I will definitely do a review and give you guys the full scoop on that. But I think that's going to add a much needed alternative in the luxury 3-row SUV segment. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what vehicles are good if you need more space for lots of kids and stuff, or if you need less space. I'll be right back after this. hate car shopping? Do you worry about being taken advantage of or about finding the right car at a great price? Buying a car can be a frustrating and time-consuming experience. But what if you could get a great deal without having to do a ton of research, without having to haggle, and without the fear of buying a lemon? You can. As your personal car shopper, the Car Chick will help you pick the perfect car based on your unique lifestyle, budget, and personality. She'll handle all of the legwork and negotiating for you. All you have to do is sign the papers and take the keys. It's that easy. To learn how the Car Chick can save you time, money, and hassle on your next car purchase, give us a call at 704-248-8706. That's 704-248-8706. Or visit us on the web at thecarchick.com.
Ah, the Car Chick is back for more Straight Shift.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Straight Shift. In anticipation of Mother's Day coming up, we are talking about the best vehicles for moms that are not minivans. We talked about the three-row SUVs in the midsize category that generally are the most common alternatives that people want in exchange for a minivan. But if you need more space, if you've got a larger family, say you've got 3 or 4 kids and you've got a whole bunch of stuff to haul around, you're going to be doing family vacations to the beach or the mountains or wherever you want to go, then you are looking at what I call the big honkin' SUV category, something like a Suburban or an Expedition. In Chevy world, the Tahoe is the shorter version of the Suburban. And while it gives you a good amount of space inside the cabin in the second and third rows, you don't get that much more room in the cargo area behind the third row than you do in a regular mid-sized SUV. So you're kind of sacrificing some of that functionality, even though it's got a higher price tag than most of your mid-size SUVs. So for a lot of people, that trade-off is not worth it. But if you do need all the space that you can possibly get, you're pretty much looking at the Suburban or the Ford Expedition Max. The Expedition comes in a regular length, which is comparable to the Tahoe, and the Expedition Max, which is comparable to the Suburban. And in the GM world, obviously, GMC makes the Yukon and the Yukon XL. It's the cousin to the Suburban. It's essentially the same vehicle, just different bells and whistles and a slightly higher price tag. So, the difference is you get a lot more cargo space behind that third row when you extend that wheelbase and go to the Suburban or the Expedition Max. Toyota is the only one of the Japanese brands that makes what I call a big honkin' SUV, other than Infiniti in the luxury segment. Infiniti makes the QX80, which, again, is comparable in size to the Tahoe. Really luxurious, really nice vehicle, lots of space inside the cabin, but really no more cargo space than you get with a mid-sized SUV behind that third row. The Sequoia is by far the most reliable, but again, you don't have the cargo space. If you don't need that much cargo space, the Sequoia can be absolutely fantastic because it is reliable. It holds its value obscenely well, and it can be very difficult to find if you're looking for one used. I'm probably going to be shopping for one of those next week, and they can be hard to find. But if you need a school bus, the Suburban or the Expedition, either one of them are decent vehicles. They both get crappy gas mileage. Neither are particularly reliable because they're American cars. I personally like the Expedition better than the Suburban, simply because it's been redesigned more recently. They redesigned the Expedition in 2018, and it's got a lot of bells and whistles and new technology features that are superior to the slightly outdated Chevy Suburban. Now, Ford and Chevy are constantly competing, so when Chevy redesigns the Suburban, it's probably going to flip-flop again, and it really depends on what your personal preference is. But if you get into this category, you're talking a price tag of, $55,000, $60,000, $65,000, even up to $80,000 for these big honkin' SUVs. And then don't even get me started on how much the insurance on these things costs. So that can be more than a lot of families can afford. So unless you absolutely need something the size of a bus, don't get something the size of a bus. It's just not worth the money. A lot of my clients are moms or dads who don't need quite as much space. A smaller SUV works perfectly fine for them because they've only got one or two kids, or maybe they're starting a family and so they're just going to have, one baby, and then maybe in a couple years they might have another baby. So they don't need anything that big. But if you want something that has the passenger space and comfort, especially if you have older kids or you need to haul also adults around, maybe for work you need to be able to take clients around, so the adults need to be comfortable too, then you can get a midsize SUV that still only has 2 rows. And one of my favorite choices in that category is the Hyundai Santa Fe. Santa Fe used to come in 3 rows, but they phased that out last year when the Palisade was brought out. You get a lot of bells and whistles like with any Hyundai. That's Hyundai's thing. Lots of bells and whistles for your money and a ridiculously long warranty. And the Santa Fe's have been pretty reliable over time. And it's just a good overall vehicle. You get good cargo space. And in the last couple of years, they've really upped their game on the interior quality. So that's one of my favorite vehicles if you just need 2 rows, but still a reasonable amount of legroom, headroom, and cargo space. If your family is a little more on the adventurous side and you like to go hiking and camping and kayaking and over to the Whitewater Center or, whatever outdoor adventures you want to tackle, the Subaru Outback is hands down the best choice. You get the additional cargo space in the back. You get standard all-wheel drive so you can go off the beaten path. And Subaru gives you a ton of optional accessories that you can buy. They have a partnership with Thule, which is the top brand for racks that you can put on the back of the car, on the top of the car, to haul everything from bikes to kayaks and paddle boards and tents and whatever you want to do outdoors. Pretty much you can do with a Subaru Outback. So it's one of my best choices for that. You can also get the interior almost completely rubberized. So you're not going to have to worry about all the mud that the kids and the dogs are going to drag into the car, and you can just hose it out. It's just such a practical choice for active families. Now, if you need a smaller SUV, again, let's say you have one kid like my sister-in-law Shanna does, or you're just starting a family like my friends Alex and Emily, who are their first baby's due in September. Congratulations, Alex and Emily. I'm so excited for you. In that small SUV category, my top choices for the moms and dads are the Subaru Forester, the Toyota RAV4, and the Mazda CX-5, which a lot of people don't even necessarily think about because Mazda is a little more of a niche brand. The Toyota RAV4 has probably been the most reliable SUV for the last 2 decades. There's just been a few years that have had some problems. And when I say problems, they are relatively minor compared to the problems that most brands have faced off and on over the years. Toyota redesigned the RAV4 last year at the same time Subaru redesigned the Forester. And it's kind of funny because the styling is so similar. It's almost like they maybe were spying on each other. And they came out with these vehicles that on the exterior look very, very similar, but they are still very different vehicles. The new RAV4 does have a little bit more rugged styling, so it's not as weird as the previous body style. The previous body style, a lot of people didn't like, and it was very angular, and you couldn't see squat out the back. So it's a little more of a rectangle now. You have better rear visibility. Toyota gave you even more technology, safety features. They've always given you the great driver safety aids, but they just keep adding more. And they finally are adding the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which has been the big technology thing they've been missing. So the new RAV4 is great. The only thing I don't like about it, though, is the ride quality. For some reason, it just doesn't feel as solid and stable. If I had to describe it, it feels a little wobbly to drive. The all-wheel drive version is way better than the front-wheel drive version. I think the way the all-wheel drive system works just makes it more stable, but it's just not smooth. Let's put it that way. It's just not smooth, and I've had a lot of people test it, and that was what they said. Nope, I just don't like the way it drives. So, but for some people, they thought it was perfectly fine. So again, that's, comfort, as I say, is in the butt of the beholder. So it's very much a personal preference and what feels comfortable to you. The seating in the RAV4 is comfortable in the short term. So if you're just going to be driving around town a bunch, you're fine. But if you want to take it on a longer road trip, the padding in the seat bottoms can start to feel a little bit flat and a little bit hard if your butt is in that seat for a long period of time. So that's just something to consider. But it should definitely be on your list of vehicles to test drive if you're looking for a small SUV / crossover. I love the Subaru Forester. It is one of my favorites. It is solid. They've been reliable. It has the best visibility because it is basically a rectangle and always has been. The Forester I think it rides smoother than the RAV4. It feels more solid. And part of that is because all Subarus are all-wheel drive all the time. That's their thing. Every Subaru is all-wheel drive. And the suspension, I think, is just more solid. And so it feels a little tighter, a little more stable on the road. Yet it doesn't ride rough. It rides reasonably comfortably. For a small SUV, none of them are going to ride cushy except maybe the Lexus, and you're going to have the price tag with that. But it's just a great all-around vehicle. And again, it's a little more practical. It's for the mom that knows she's going to be hauling around kids and maybe the dog, and she's not going to have time to religiously keep it clean. It's got to be able to hold up to some wear and tear of the family, because let's just be honest, that is the reality of most of our lives. And it's just a great all-around family vehicle. And it's got some good ground clearance. So if you do want to take it up into the mountains or camping or whatever, it can definitely handle that better than a lot of its competitors. My other favorite small SUV, which is completely different, it's kind of a 180 from the RAV or the Forester, is the Mazda CX-5. I absolutely love that vehicle. It has good reliability, and it's solid. It drives great. The CX-5 is more for the mom who is, she likes to drive. She wants that sportier feel. It has tighter steering. It hugs the road better. It's a little more like a sports car that's masquerading as an SUV. And especially when you get up into the higher trim levels, it can be really luxurious. The Reserve and the Signature trim levels can rival a lot of your entry-level luxury vehicles. It's really, really impressive, and you get a lot of great technology, and it still has all the safety equipment and has good safety ratings as the other vehicles. But it's definitely a car that is more about the driver. So this is what I bought for my sister-in-law, Shanna, because, she's a professional. She's an accountant. She wanted a vehicle for herself that her child will happen to ride in. My niece is, how old is Sophia now? Like 9, 10. I can't keep track. But she's not going to be getting in it all muddy. The dog doesn't ride in it on a regular basis. Riley stays in the backyard. So this was a vehicle for her. So for a mom that wants to keep herself as a priority as she's trying to balance work and family, which is just the craziest balancing act you can do, and I applaud all the moms out there for pulling it off, this is a great choice. The Mazda is a wonderful, wonderful, and borderline luxurious small SUV. So I've thrown a lot of different vehicles out there, and I talked mostly about SUVs. For some people, a sedan works perfectly well. If you don't have a lot of cargo that you need to get in and out, if you're not going to be also transporting a dog periodically, if a vehicle with a trunk works perfectly fine for you. But I've just found that most of my moms, they like having the cargo space that a vehicle like an SUV provides, especially because you have the flexibility of folding down that third row or even folding down the second row if you have a smaller one and giving you that cargo space. They like sitting up higher because there are so many other SUVs on the road that you just feel safer being able to see a little bit better. I drive this, silly little Mini Cooper sports car. I can't see squat out there, but I'm also a really trained driver. I'm used to racing, so I drive a little more aggressively, and so I don't need to see around people. I just go around them. But your average person likes the comfort of being able to sit up a little bit higher on the road. They feel safer. There's nothing wrong with that. So this is why I tend to buy mostly SUVs for my clients. I buy a few sedans, and there are some good sedan options out there. It's actually probably one of the most competitive categories. I like the Honda Accord. It's one of the few Hondas that I still really love. The newly redesigned Camry isn't too bad. Subaru just redesigned the Legacy. Nissan has always had some sporty ones. The Kia Optima is actually a really great SUV. Even in the American cars, I have had a Ford Fusion as a rental car on a couple of occasions. And as a rental car, I've totally loved it. The ride quality was outstanding. Long-term reliability, I'm not so sure about. But, there's just a lot of really good sedans out there. But most of my clients want SUVs, and it is the most popular segment in the automotive industry. My number one recommendation, no matter what size SUV you might be shopping for, or even if you are the type of person who can totally rock a minivan, the single most important feature that I have seen be of great value to parents is the hands-free power liftgate. That's where you can run your foot underneath the back bumper and the liftgate magically opens for you. Because what mom does not have their hands full all the time, especially if you have young kids and you're carrying one kid and you're trying to also carry your purse or your briefcase or whatever packages you just bought at the store. We just constantly have our hands full. And so that can be a big deal. Even if you don't get the hands-free one, and you just get a regular power liftgate where you have to push a button, but then it still magically opens and closes for you, that can just make your life so much easier. It takes a little more time than if you just reach up and manually wham that liftgate down. It takes a little longer to close, but it can save your shoulders and your back, which as a mom, if you're carrying around kids, those things can start to hurt. I even like them for my senior clients where their shoulders are just getting a little more wear and tear than they used to, and that power liftgate can really save them as well. So if you're a mom, especially to my new moms, you don't know what you don't know yet, trust me, that power liftgate is going to be a godsend for you. And if you can afford the trim level that it has that, do it. Trust me, you will thank me later once you actually have the kid and all their stuff and you're trying to juggle everything. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. These vehicles happen to be my personal picks for moms based on the quality and reliability data that's available in the industry, as well as just my personal experience and personal preference and what I've seen make my clients particularly happy. But every person's situation and priorities are different. And that's why it's important to do your homework. That's why my process goes through what we call the perfect car analysis to really narrow it down. What vehicle is perfect for you and your unique situation? But no matter what kind of car you drive, I hope you have a fantastic, safe, and wonderful Mother's Day. Moms, you are the most badass people in our society, and you deserve to be honored and pampered, and we love you. So take care, folks. Until next time, I'm out of here.
The Straight Shift podcast is copyright LeeAnn Shattuck, The Car Chick, 2017. All views expressed by guest and or co-hosts are those of the guest and or co-hosts, and not necessarily those of LeeAnn Shattuck or The Car Chick.